weeks ago, honoring women, and women got to get treated like luxury and royalty the other day, and I'm so mad that I missed that event. And so we're gonna move on. We're gonna move on to why we are here today. We are here today to hear from the Office of Probation and Parole. And one of the things, if somebody can take that meeting live stream off of the center, because I can't read it. Maybe it's me. Back. So probation versus parole. The terms parole and probation often are used interchangeably. While each describes the legal as individuals conditionally released, the two are indeed different punishments and process. Probation, and I want our two guests to also correct me if these definitions are wrong or if they've been recoined since the last time we've gotten this definition. Probation is levied by the criminal legal system and is an alternative to jail time, ordered either in lieu of or as a suspension of a prison, of a prison sentence. An individual on probation remains under the court supervision and must adhere to the strict rules throughout the probation term or risk going behind bars. I gotta get a little closer. Parole. And I can't see something. Okay. 1 second, y'all. There we go. Parole is a conditional release from prison and is overseen by the state's correctional system. A defendant, I don't like to say defendant, I like to say our family members typically is sentenced to jail and some possibility of parole. Once he or she has served the designated percentage of the sentence, that individual can go before a parole board, which has the option to grant early release. That early release most often will involve a parole. The first guest I'll bring in, and we're gonna have, it should be about 4 or 5 of us on this panel. No, we're gonna skip prepare because I don't think they're here yet. And we're gonna go straight to Ms. Stewart. Ms. Stewart, we're gonna have Ms. Stewart, after Ms. Stewart. Those slides aren't needed right now, Durham or the one. We're gonna go straight to Ms. Stewart. After Ms. Stewart, Mr. Nolley, and after Mr. Nolley, then back to Qiana to talk about her lived experience. So first, we'll start with you, Stewart. Can we please make sure Mr. Nolley is in the waiting room? I don't understand why. But first, can we start with Ms. Stewart?
Absolutely. Good evening, everyone. First of all, it is an honor and it is a pleasure to be here and to share, and that you all want to know. You know, a lot of times people don't want to know. People don't really care. Like, what's happening? What's going on in these offices and in these buildings? So I just want to say we appreciate you all. We thank you for this effort. We thank you for the platform. We thank you that you all are vested in this effort and this information. So I'm Agent KaeShawn Stewart, and so I am a parole and probation agent. So a little bit about my history and background. I don't see my boss here, but
he's coming in. He's coming in.
Okay.
Yes, he's here. He's here.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure he's here and around. But a little bit about my background, and I just wanted to share that I started out, and I'm passionate about this work. I am vested in this work, and I'm a product of this work. And I'm gonna say I'm a product of it. Both my mom, my dad, my grandfather, my brothers, my siblings, everyone went to prison, went to jail, okay? At the age of 14, I said, I wanna be a correctional officer. I wanna be a parole and probation officer. Who says that, right? Who says that? Nobody I knew growing up in Westport and Cherry Hill said, I wanna be a parole or a probation agent, but I did, and let me tell you why. At 14 years old, By the time I was raped, I was abused, I was homeless, living in Westport. I was sitting on a bench 3 o'clock in the morning wondering, where has my mother? It's been all summer, I haven't seen her. She was struggling in her addiction, but there was a correctional officer, was a captain. His name was Jamie Wright. Has passed away now, but he pulled up, he says, KaeShawn, why are you sitting out here? I said, I'm looking for my mother. You know, I know that she's struggling with her addiction, but she never left this long. By this time, our house been raided, our house, we've been homeless, but never this long have she's left us. So where is she? I just want to give her a funeral if she's passed away. He says, she is at the cut. And I said, what is the cut? You know, he said, she's at the women's cut. Like, what? What is that? He says, she's in Jessup. She's in jail. She's in the RSEP program. She's healthy. She's doing fine. She's doing well. And I cried. I fell in his arms and I cried. And he said, oh, don't cry, don't cry. You know, she's doing good. I said, I'm not crying because I'm sad. I'm crying because I'm happy. And he said, oh, okay. So from that point on, at 14 years old, I said I wanted to be a correctional officer. So at 14, that's what I said. So by the time I was 21, I started working in corrections. He said, well, in order to do this, you got to get off the street. You can't be out here getting into trouble. You can't. And I was like, okay. So I'm not going to drop out, because I was going to drop out of school. I was going to follow the path and the pattern that I saw, you know, psychosocial dysfunctionalism. So I said, okay, well, I know I got to do something different. So I went to school, got myself together. So I started going to school, graduated from high school, and finally pursued my career as being a correctional officer. Did that for 10 years and transitioned into parole and probation 12 years after that. So I've been in this field for 22 years. So my mom went to prison. So guess what? She came home on parole. I was happy. I was excited. Yeah, she's home. By this time, I'm old. I had a child by this time. But guess what, y'all? She relapsed. And I'm sitting with my infant baby and watching my mom go to jail with a sting operation on Fox 45 News. That's my mother. She's going back to jail. But guess what happened? She had a parole agent who didn't give up on her, who gave her the resources, who said, listen, you know, I got to write this report. I got to violate you, but let's do something different. You know, you got to stay out of this community. We got to do something different. And my mom shared that with me. I said, I want to be a parole and probation agent now. I am a product of the services for parole, probation, correctional services. So why I don't give up? I don't give up on my clients. And I look at how I'm giving services, and I look at how I'm doing my job. And I look at how can I'm vested in my clients' growth. I'm vested in what I need to do for the community. I'm vested in what's new, what's changing, listening, being an active listener. So for 22 years, I've dedicated my life to the same department who said yes to me when I didn't want to say yes to my own life. So that's why I'm here.
Thank you so much. And while we're getting Mr. Nolley back, Zoom has been giving us all so much trouble today. Mr. Nolley can hear us, and somehow his video isn't working. And so the back end tech support is working with him to get him in through his phone, or we're talking to him. So your boss is here, and we appreciate him, because that kind of stuff starts at the top, right? If at the top it is the norm to be who you are, then you can be who you are.
That's right.
So while we're getting Mr. Nolley back on, can you talk to us a little bit about the functions of probation and parole? What does your daily task look like? What are your expectations over there at probation and parole?
Absolutely. So I want to start with, first of all, we do have policies, we do have procedures, we do have protocols, we have what we call matrix. So everyone, a lot of times people get caught up and you say we have our probation. So let's talk about probation. And yes, there is a difference between probation and parole. And early on in your presentation, you asked the question, hey, is this the right definition? That's a great definition. So you did, y'all hit that spot on with that definition between parole and probation. So that was pretty good. And hopefully Mr. Nolley is listening and he would agree with that. And so your probation is definitely, that sentence is given by the judge. And so the judge will give some conditions, and those conditions are followed, and we get the conditions, and We go over that order with the client. So what we try to say, we'll go with that and we'll say, these are your goals. What are your goals? And so my approach is, what are your goals? What are your goals? You start have a different approach. My approach is a little different. We go over the order, make sure that the clients understand. One of the things we want to not just assume that our clients understand and know and read. So let's be real. Let's be honest. Almost everybody that went to court and you get nervous. I don't care if it's a parking ticket. I don't care what you're going to court for. You nervous, you sweating, you're like, I just want to get out of here, right? So you get out of the courthouse and you have signed something and you didn't really read everything thoroughly. So the idea and the thought is that when we sit down with our clients, let's review this order. Let's go through this order. Let's make sure you understand the standard conditions and your special conditions. So we go through that. We review it. We make sure they understand what that is about. What are you supposed to do? So we talk about and how you're going to obtain these special conditions. How are you going to get this done? And you ask, well, you think you can get this done? No, yes, maybe. And so we'll talk about that, right? We'll talk about how can we get this done. Now we'll address the barriers that stand in between A and B. I try to talk about the barriers. So we'll address that and we sign and acknowledge that you understand. Now, that you understand what you need to do, not that you're going to leave out of here today and be able to get all this done tomorrow, or you have all the answers. What I say is, let me be your GPS, okay? I'm going to be your GPS. Now, you can take a detour if you like, but sometimes we don't know what's on the other side of this detour. You know how we do, we put the address in. And because we're familiar with the process, so we're familiar with the distance and where we're going, we're going to go and take our own route because we know how to get to where we're going. But we don't know that there's a traffic jam. And that's what I say to my clients. You don't know it's a traffic jam on 695 because you can't see. Let me be your GPS so I can help you get to that destination safely. And so that's kind of the approach that most of us try to take with our clients, being their GPS for them. And so we go through that, be that GPS, try to navigate them through this process, sign and acknowledge and refer them to the places that the court and that the judge ordered them to go. Now, let's talk about how that can go wrong sometimes, because we can't talk about like it's all peaches and cream and things don't go well, okay? So we're gonna talk about what don't go well. Yeah. If the judge says you have to go to behavioral health care or you have to go to hard bell, and then you end up at power recovery. Well, that's not going to work, everybody. That's not going to work because the judge put an order and ordered you to go to behavioral health. Now, let's say you've been going to this program and someone told you about the program and maybe this program is going well. Well, guess what? Let's just have a conversation with how this program may work. For maybe that program has been working for you. Well, we got to write to the judge. We got to write to go. I want to talk to the treatment provider. Now, and I'll go do a community visit. Some of them know that's true because I'm coming to knock on the door. How y'all doing? Hi, everybody. I want to come and talk to that provider. I want to do that collaboration meeting. And then let's write to the courts and say, Your Honor, can we come back to court for a status hearing or a status meeting to talk about where they were court ordered to go? You just can't go randomly to where you want to go because there is a reason why the courts ordered you to go to a particular program. Does that mean that that court order program is always a perfect fit for that client? No, but that don't mean we can make the decisions and you go wherever you want to go. There's a policy, there's a procedure. How do we do that? We have to communicate. We have to write to the courts. We have to show up. We have to show up. And so there's some.
Were you going on? I'm sorry, I didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah, we have to show up. And how do we do that? So sometimes you're asked, it's about having that conversation. It's about documenting that in case those. And I always say to my clients, create a professional email address, right? Because that's how in this new COVID age and email, let's do it. Not just for me, not just for you, but you're going to need this for your life moving forward. So let's just say, I'm this program, but CC me, and if you're not getting what you need from your provider, or you didn't get it from the treatment counselor, send it to me and CC me on it because it holds everybody accountable.
Right.
It holds me accountable. It holds the provider accountable, because we did the release of information when we all had that first conversation. When we came in and we did the review and we did all the release of consent, that holds us all accountable. So that's just one step. I see Mr. Nolley back.
Yes, can we make sure we bring Mr. Nolley up?
Yes, I'm passing the mic to Mr. Nolley.
Let's pass the mic to Mr. Nolley. And Zoom has been not treating us all so well. Is the back end able to bring Mr. Nolley up? Can we hear Mr. Nolley? I thought we saw him. Did you? I think we saw him.
I see him, but
there we go. There you go. We got you. That's okay. He coming in through live, right? He gonna make it work. That's the type of probation we like. We see you, Mr. Nolley. We just we're getting you a little bit.
yeah, but first and foremost, communication verbally, communication via email, even via text, making sure that we are communicating, that two-way communication with our clients, with community providers.
Yeah. Mr. Nolley, we see you. We're ready if you are.
Are you trying to unmute your phone?
It's a 5G.
Right.
I'm gonna put mine on.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
All right. Finally got technology to work. Good evening, everyone. How are you? My name is Walter Nolley.
All is well.
My name is Walter Nolley. I'm the Executive Deputy Director for the Division of Parole and Probation. I'm in charge of all the statewide operations for parole and probation services here in the state of Maryland. My background is I've been working in this field with community corrections for this 21st year. I started as an agent and progressively worked my way up to my current position. So I've been in every level of, as far as first line supervisor, mid-level manager, in charge of a particular region. Now I'm the Deputy Director of Operations. One thing I wanted to add on to what Ms. Johnson presented earlier is we do have another level of supervision, and that's mandatory release as far as how we supervise cases. Mandatory release is where you receive a sentence and you're sentenced to, let's say I get sentenced today to 10 years in prison. Technically, if there wasn't anything such as good time credits or anything like that, I would serve day for day 10 years of my sentence. But because you earn good time, particular conviction, as long as you are not violating any rules or anything behind bars, you earn good time credits. So those are days that are taken away from your sentence. So in the event that you do not earn parole, you do have the opportunity to get out and be released to the street earlier than day for day for your sentence. And of course, those good time credits is all determined on your behavior while you're in an institution. And you have the ability to move down in security levels and things of that nature. So we do have that added supervision. It's not a level of supervision, but it is another way of how we supervise clients in the community. And one of the reasons why I joined this field is, I've had friends and people I grew up with, people I went to high school with who went to prison. They went to prison for various different reasons. And what always interested me was I always was inquisitive and wanting to know why. Wanting to know what was the circumstances that caused the person to go to prison. And of course, when I started, I didn't know, you have all these different ideas in your mind of what caused the person to go to prison, you know, and until you get really started working with people, you then found out their stories as far as what was some of the circumstances that got them involved in the criminal justice system, you know, and it wasn't something that was a pure cookie cutter approach for every single individual that we supervise. You know, that everybody had their own life circumstances and their own challenges, which led us to, you know, our relationship as me being your supervising agent and you on the other side of the of death. Didn't necessarily mean that you were a bad person, that you had some circumstances that may have caused some issues in your life that caused a decision to be made. That doesn't mean that you can't be redeemed from that decision. That doesn't mean that you can't be reintegrated into society overall just because you were convicted of an offense, and understanding that. So it was something that I felt a passion for, which is what led me to continue my career in this field as far as how we supervise our clients. We do have a version now, and I'm not sure if Ms. Stewart broached this topic, but we do have the ability for individuals to have those earned compliance credits towards their supervision. So essentially, it's the same way as when a person was incarcerated, that as you are doing well, you can earn credits, which will eventually, you won't have to see us as often. You wouldn't have to see us at all. You would be in an abated status. And you earn up to, I believe, 20 days per month that you are in compliance with the terms of your supervision. Mr.
Nolley, is this a new program? Is this something that's been around for a little while? You just mentioned something that is new to us, earned compliance. That was going to go into my next question before I get to the directly impact experience, and then come back to you all, because we have burning questions coming from the audience. But my one question is, can you explain the different types of parole and probation? Ms. Stewart already talked about the ways to get it. You already talked about some of the types of parole and probation options. But can you expound a little bit more on earned compliance credits and any other additional programs that has been initiated under your leadership, Mr. Nolley?
Okay. Well, earned compliance credits was all instituted as part of, I'm not sure if you have heard or you may have heard the term, but there was an act that was passed in 2017 called the Justice Reinvestment Act. It was passed by the Maryland legislature. And what it did is it recognized that, you know, everyone that we have that's currently in prison recognizes that everyone that's there doesn't necessarily need to stay there their whole entire time, that there are people who are serving sentences of nonviolent nature that could be possibly managed in the community a lot easier. And on our half, what that did is we also instituted, the part of that whole legislative package was, when that was passed, was the institution of earned compliance credits, the same way that you earn those credits while you're incarcerated, extending that out into the community as a method to reward individuals who are doing well under supervision, where what happens is for every month that you are compliant with the terms of your supervision, you do earn those days. And what I mean by compliance, it's bigger than just not staying crime-free. It's also, when we talk about compliance, it's okay if you are court ordered to let's say a treatment program, making sure that you are attending your treatment program, you're not kicked out of the program, or you just leave because of you don't feel like it's something that's necessarily needed for you at that point in time, or you fail to report to your agent and you don't call them, and you may have a legitimate excuse why you couldn't report. Like maybe you were ill. Maybe you had to work that day. You know, you were working and you have a job and you were working, and your report day was Tuesday at 5 o'clock, but your job held you over. You know, something that simple as that, picking up the phone, calling your agent, saying, you know, hey, I'm still here at work. I can't get off right now. Can I reschedule my appointment? I absolutely do not allow folks to be held to that standard where they feel like that they have to leave their work to get to see an agent. We can always work around work schedules, you know, because at the end of the day, having someone who is employed and is doing the right thing, it benefits us all. So the major hindrance I can tell you in regards to earned compliance credits, well, let me back up a second. There are, majority of the offenses that we supervise are eligible for earned compliance credits, but there are a host of offenses that aren't eligible. And most of them are crimes of violence. Handgun possession is one. It's not necessarily a crime of violence, but it is included as far as an offense that could preclude you from earning earned compliance credits. But the lion's share of the offenses that are here in the state of Maryland, individuals are eligible to receive those credits.
Mr. Nolley, is that at the discretion of the probation officer, or is the earned compliance credit in the case law? So my question is, do you, a probation officer, parole officer, have the discretion to allow me compliance credits even though I have a violent offense, or are you restricted by law?
We're restricted by law in regards to which offenses are eligible for earned compliance credits. And I can send a document in regards to which offenses are included and which offenses are excluded, along with, you know, maybe a small fact sheet that can, you know, explain the whole entire process. But what happens is our current system, unless the agent goes in and there's an instance of non-compliance, you earn those credits. Like, we have to tell the system to take those credits away. And like I said, those are tied to instances of non-compliance. Now, there is a provision in the law regarding when you talk about non-compliance, there is a provision in the law that we can't apply those credits if there's a monetary obligation out there. And what I mean by monetary could be restitution, could be supervision fees, could be fines and costs. The reason I'm bringing that up is that fines, costs, and supervision fees, those are able to be waived by your by the sentencing authority. If it's a probation case, the court can waive it. If it's a parole or mandatory release case, the parole commission can waive those. And any individual can advocate on their own behalf, can write a letter to their judge, write a letter to the parole commission saying that, hey, I have some exigent circumstances, maybe I do work a job, but maybe I have other monetary obligations that preclude me from paying the $50 a month supervision fees. Put all of that in a letter or correspondence to the parole commission or the courts. And generally speaking, the courts and the parole commission are receptive to those. And in those instances, once they waive that, those obligations as far as paying that is off the table. And if that's the only thing that's holding the individual back from receiving earned compliance credits, that's completely off the table. And what that allows us to do is, well, the system will tabulate the earned compliance credits for individuals. So what will end up happening is that once you reach that earned compliance date, we simply notify the sentencing authority that, hey, this person has reached an earned compliance date. And essentially that case will go into abated status, which means you would not have to report to an agent at all. The only thing that would be really holding over your head is if you get arrested or incur a new conviction. Of course, we would have to notify the courts, or we would have to notify the parole commission. But other than that, you wouldn't have, it would be somewhat like unsupervised probation to a degree. So you wouldn't be reporting actively to your agent, and pretty much we would just be monitoring your case for any type of, like say, any type of arrest or any type of new conviction. And absent of that, when the case reaches natural expiration, we close it, and that's counted for us and you as a successful closure. You know, so that's a good thing, and that's what we is have people complete supervision. I know that sometimes that there's a view in the community that all we're here to do is simply violate people, and I can tell you that from this seat here, that's the furthest thing from the truth. We have hardworking, dedicated agents such as Ms. Stewart who are actively trying to work with their clients to get them in a place where we don't have them return back to the system, because we're all about successes. You know, we try to learn from our failures, but we don't want to have people continuously coming in and out of the system, because we realize how that tears apart families, you know, because at some point in time, individuals may get to a point where, you know, if you have kids, you may be actively involved in their lives. And, you know, when you return to prison, that's a whole different aspect of, you know, taking a person out of the community and separating them from their families, and the costs that the ancillary costs that come along with that. So, you know, we take our jobs extremely seriously in that regard, and not trying to actively remove people from the community that absolutely, you know, need to remain in the community. Though, will some people fail? That's just the natural bell curve of life. You know, you have some people who are high performers and everybody in the middle. You have some people who are exceptions to the rule. But we want to, those people who want to stay in the community and are doing the right thing, we are encouraging them, we are supervising them, and we're trying to get them as many rewards as possible. And that's where really, that was really the
that, Mr. Nolley, and I want you to wrap up the last part of your sentence. We're gonna move on to the next guest, but we're coming back to you, Mr. Nolley, because in the chat, people are saying, great information. We had no clue these changes existed, right? So this is why Life After Release and Out for Justice decided that we wanted to bring this agency to the people that it impacts the most. Next, I want to bring in lived experience. Qiana Johnson, after Qiana, I think our partners from Prepare is here to talk about their role around probation and parole. And so we want to bring in Qiana. If one of our members, one of our guest members is here, he can go after Qiana. But we're going to take the next 5 minutes to 5 to 10 minutes to get in our other panelists and let's light up these questions. So go ahead, Qiana.
I'm not going to take too long, because first I just want to say thank you so much to Mr. Nolley and Ms. Stewart for taking the time to come on the panel and to actually talk to us, talk to our members, talk to the folks that we engage with each and every day. As a Black, formerly incarcerated woman who is actually actively on probation, it is really, really tough. You know, it's very hard for me. And when you say exceptions to the rule, I know for a fact that I'm definitely an exception to the rule, and it's still very hard for me to navigate. So I know that individuals who are coming to the table with another perspective, I know that it's very difficult for them to be able to navigate. So I thank you all for that. I also want to state that, so too often we see the other side of the government coming to events and doing things. We see the prosecutor, we see the police, we see law enforcement, all other folks that come to the table. Really, people who are directly impacted and formerly incarcerated, we really not trying to see them, right? We are really trying to talk to the people that we need to talk to that could potentially keep us safe in this instance of parole and probation, and keep us from getting a knock at our door from some officers saying that you're in violation and you need to come with us, right? Like that's the worst thing that you can have happen to you while you're in this situation. I was released from prison in 2017, August the 21st. It was the day of the eclipse. I'll never forget. It was 6 months after I was supposed to be released because they messed up my paperwork, but I'm not going to talk about that. So I did six months extra down at the cut, right? Because there's only one prison in the state of Maryland for women at this time. So whether you steal a candy bar or you engage in the most horrific social harm there is taking someone's life, you are going to be down at the cut. And that's where I was for 2.5 years out of my 8.5 year sentence. I had 2 different sentences. One sentence was run consecutive to another. So I had 2 judges, right? I had 2 judges. I had 2 cases. They were both running at the same time, that's a whole nother issue, but they were both running at the same time. Had 2 judges, 2 case numbers. And so when I went to prison, when they calculated my time, what happened was there was a lot of mix up because one judge said something on one order and then another judge said something on another order. And those 2 orders were supposed to marry and come together down when you get to case management. It just don't always happen like that. I stayed in case management then I went back to court for what is known as a resentencing hearing, right? So if you're out there in social media land and you have a loved one who recently have gone to court, my suggestion is to make sure you check in with that attorney to make sure that they have put in a resentencing motion so that their judge can hold that in abeyance for you so that within 5 years, you can then go back to the court and petition the court to have a resentencing motion. And the judge can do a number of things at your resentencing hearing. They can give you early terminate, they can release you, they can do a lot of things. In my case, my first judge took all of it's called taking her time back. My first judge, Judge Woodard, took all of her time back. She said, I'm taking all of my time back from Ms. Johnson and I'm going to put her on PBJ when she comes home after a year. Like she essentially changed the whole dynamic of my court order, right? But I had another judge who did not do that, right? This other judge did not do that. So I had to go back down to the cut. They had to recalculate my time. They had to take all of my time back from one judge. Then they had to speed up the time from the other judge in the system and put his time in, take her time out. And what that did was made things very, very confusing for my case. So when I came home, when it's time for me to leave, there was some miscalculations that were done, and I ended up spending 6 months extra in prison, right? Fast forward to now, almost 5 years later, my expiration is coming up in August for probation. I'm in an active VOP. I'm in an active violation of probation because during all of this mix-up, there was also a mix-up in the judge's order around restitution. And so what happened there was the restitution order never made it from the judge's chambers to parole and probation. So I'm going to all of my agents. I have had several agents during the life of my parole. And I'm talking to them and I'm saying, hey, I think I'm supposed to pay restitution. What am I supposed to do? They're like, nope, don't have a payment book. I don't know what you're talking about. There's nowhere for you to pay it. I don't know what to tell you. I said, okay. And I go with that. And I'm continually moving with my case. I'm actually actively going to court now in the appeals division for my case. I have a petition my case to go to the next level. But all of that being said, there was a lot of moving parts in the parole and probation for me, right? Because I'm not the only person in the system that have had 2 cases at one time. There's some people that got 3 cases at one time, 4 cases in different jurisdictions, all different types of things. And so what that does, it makes the parole and probation process a moving part, and it does not make it linear, right? And so you have to continuously check in each probation officer that I had, I got their phone numbers, their email addresses, the email addresses of their supervisors in case I couldn't get in contact with them. And it may have seemed like a lot, but it's what saved my life from having to go back into incarceration. So I'm actually in an active VOP right now. I do have an attorney. I suggest that if you have a VOP, if you've been notified or some support based on a VOP, my suggestion to you is that you try to obtain an attorney. It will not be appointed to you like it is when you're first arrested, because it's now considered a civil matter. And in the United States, you're not entitled to an attorney unless you are going through a criminal matter, and your probation is not a criminal matter anymore. It's now a civil matter. So you're not entitled to an attorney. The public defender's office will not represent you in those hearings. You will be by yourself in your VOP hearings, right? Explaining yourself to your judge and to your probation officer. So really, honestly and truly, the only person that you have to really to really speak on your behalf is your agent. So I always recommend that folks have foster and forge a relationship between them and their agent so that they can have the best possible experience and so that they don't have to go back into a cage.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Qiana, for that. Before Elizabeth, I wanted to bring on another directly impacted voice, Deandre. He's giving us, there you go right there. Let's let him in. We want to thank him for giving us his time. He is giving us his time while he is on break, okay? Because formerly incarcerated people, we try our best to engage in this work. We try our best to make sure we're doing the right things. And I just wanted to let's let Mr. Walter back in, Mr. Nolley. Deandre, I want to thank you so much because this is my opportunity to really lift you up. And I know you might not be a public speaker, but you are one of those members who came home and got busy trying to figure out and navigate life, right? And trying to make sure that you're staying in compliance and you're staying engaged because you understood that it was a lot of people out there fighting for your release and fighting for the release of others. And so I'm not going to keep you long. As a person who's been impacted by probation and parole, I don't necessarily know if you're still on probation and parole, but can you share a little bit about your journey and how you've been navigating the probation and parole system? And don't pull no punches. Don't pull no punches. Let the people know how your life has been going on probation and parole. Have you gotten a good parole or probation officer? Have they made life easy for you the way Ms. Nolley and Ms. Stewart wants their office to? So just give us a little bit about who you are and how you're navigating probation and parole.
Well, I know Nicole probably told you, my name is Deandre. I've been home almost 3 years. It's my last year on parole, but it's been a journey period. It's been home. I navigated this through this little process, just staying focused and sticking with people that's with the right mindset that's trying to do and go somewhere. But like Nicole said something about the parole and the system. It's been okay for me because they haven't been on my back pre-COVID plus post-COVID, right? They haven't been on my back, whatever. And then I know how I navigated this, staying out the way and trying to work, things like that.
Oh, so that's a good story. So I know Mr. Nolley would like that. I mean, do you have any recommendations for people who are currently on parole? Because that's not everybody's story. I see Twan, I see my brother, Mr. Elliott. I see Amir. They have not had those same experiences, right? Give me a little bit more. You know, you said they haven't been on that. Is it?
Oh yeah. So no,
yeah,
it's because I think it's more so because I think I do what I'm supposed to do, or everybody's situation I think is different, right? Right. I had a messed up situation, right? Our backgrounds, everybody have a background, but you know what I mean. navigate. I navigate through parole like I navigate through life. Me personally, right? I stay out the way. I stay out their way. I keep people around me that's trying to go somewhere to try and do something, right? So with that being said, I don't have them checking in on me all the time. I check in when I'm supposed to check in, whatever, right? And I know the process of what that, and I've been on the other side of that equation also, when it's though they was on my back every day, right? And I'm glad I had that relief so far. But for me, in order for me to do that, to stay focused and just keep them people away from me, is to have people, right, that's around me that gonna want to see me do better, right? Such as Nicole and other people, right, that we know or may not know, right, that she may or may not know. I keep my circle tight and I keep it around good people. And you have to be patient with yourself, right? That's number one. We gotta be patient because we always think like, shit ain't going like it's supposed to go. Man, I've been home a year. I've been home 2 years, a year and a half. You know what I mean? Shit ain't going like it's supposed to go, right? And then we get frustrated with ourselves. We start going backwards, you know what I mean? Or having the people's in our business, you know what I mean? Keep going, oh, I don't have this. When they do ask you certain questions, you don't have the right questions, know how to answer those questions to keep them away from you. But it's just like navigating is keeping people in places and things like that, keeping yourself away from people and places, right?
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Mr. Nolley and Ms. Stewart, I hope you are looking at the chat because the comments are flowing, and we're going to give you an opportunity to address them. I want to bring on one of our partners from Prepare, because I want to give the last half hour or so, 40 minutes, to really allow for people to ask the questions, the tough questions, while we had Ms. Nolley and Mr. Stewart on. So we want to bring up Ms. Proctor if we can, and Deandre, stay on if you can, but I understand you on your break and you staying focused, and so I love you. You know our doors are always open to you at House for Justice, and you're right. One of the key things is keeping people around you that can help you navigate this too. You said something that was important. You're not alone, right? You got people around you with like minds, and you're putting yourself in places where you can learn from people, and you can be protected by a network. And I think that's important for us as so many incarcerated people to build a network, because your network is your network. Go ahead, Proctor, can you please introduce yourself? Can we please pull up her slide and talk about the work that she does over at Elizabeth, I'm sorry.
Hi, Nicole. Thank you for having me. The organization Prepare, we're a relatively new nonprofit. We don't yet have our own 501c3, but we're working on it and hope to have that sometime this year. And the mission is quite small, and it doesn't focus on parole when people are on the outside staying compliant. The idea is to support people, empower people to make their best case for parole. The reason is parole is one tool for addressing mass incarceration. It's only one. It's not a big piece of the puzzle, but it's a piece of the puzzle. And as things currently stand, there's no support for people in putting their best case for parole. This isn't something that the public defender does. Some people hire attorneys. Some people are lucky to get picked up by a law clinic, but most people go to their parole hearings without being ready to put their best case for parole. So the idea of our organization is to support people with information, materials, and advocacy support in putting together a parole packet and developing a reentry plan. And then we're trying to make it as difficult as possible for parole commissioners to say no, basically. And the thought is that the more support given in that way, the more people are likely to get parole and earlier in sentences. So yeah, that's the idea. We have some volunteers working with us. Okay, this slide is showing, this slide speaks to life stories. One thing we help people do as well as develop reentry plans is also write their life story for the parole commission, because unlike the court, the parole commission is looking at a huge wide range of factors. It's one of the reasons that they have so much discretion and it's difficult to predict what they're going to do, is because they can look at all those things. So we're trying to take that and use it in people's favor by enabling them to explain the bigger picture. At the trial, it's just this focus, or at the police stage, the focus is very, very narrow. At parole, it needs to go much bigger, and you need to make sure that people are giving their own life perspective of it, and it's not just the institutional perspective that the parole commission sees. So without a parole packet, the commissioners or the hearing officer, they're just going to have that institutional file in front of them. So what we're going to do is...
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. There you go. We couldn't see your full circle.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's the bigger picture, that trying to kind of help people paint that bigger picture for the parole commission. The aim of the work is decarceration in the long run, but a huge element of parole is the reentry plan. It's unlikely that the parole commission is going to grant someone parole unless they see a strong home plan, a plan for employment, family support, reentry support, targeting if somebody's got a substance abuse history, then looking for the reentry services that are going to support them on that. So I think a big piece of what we're doing is trying to build bridges with the reentry world. And there seems to be a really vibrant reentry sector in Baltimore and beyond in other parts of Maryland, but people don't necessarily know about it, because for DPSCS, the magic number is 120 days before release. That's when they see reentry coming in. Whereas for us, we're pulling that way back to the left and saying, no, these bridges need to be built much earlier to support the case for early release. So yeah, that's basically what we're doing. If anybody's interested in getting involved with the organization, either to support a loved one in their parole preparation or to learn how to be a parole advocate on behalf of someone else that we can connect you with, please just get in touch. We would love to hear from you.
Can you please drop your information in the chat? Have you been successful on any of the parole package you've helped develop so far? And do you have a specific demographic that you serve?
So to address success first, it's hard to say, oh, this person got parole. If they didn't have our help, they wouldn't get parole. You know, that's hard to say one way or another, because the parole commission's got so much discretion. One of the things we're doing is building a database, because the parole commission releases almost no data. It's hard to get anything in terms of what percentage of people are released, what percentage get out on their first hearing, their second hearing, their third hearing, how many get rehears. That kind of information is not out there. So one thing that we're doing is building a database. So as we start to work with more and more people, we're going to start to track that and also know who they're getting on their panel, if they're going before two commissioners. So we can start to see, we know that some commissioners are more generous than others, but our data should be able to build that picture and actually put numbers on it. So, you know, we only launched last June, so it's hard to give the data picture on, are we successful? But we're measuring success by reference to success at the parole hearings, but also recidivism in the long run, which is how most reentry programs do measure themselves, because we feel like if we've helped people build reentry connections and we've also engaged the family in the whole parole hearing process, that will show up, that there'll be harvest from that in the long run. And then your other question, at the moment we're working in MCIW, we're mainly with women. That's where we've got access. We've just started going back in person after a 2-year break for the pandemic, and that's been wonderful. I'd almost forgotten how important it is, how much more you get done face-to-face than via the phone or via mail. We're in the process of concluding an agreement with DPSCS to be able to roll out elsewhere. At the moment, we're just in the women's prison, but the idea is in the long run that it would be, ideally, everybody should have the information, the materials, and the support necessary to make their best case for parole.
So one of the questions was, how many people have you helped? Did you already answer that?
At the moment, we are working with, we have about 50 women that we're working on their packets at the moment. Since we launched, the ones that have actually been for hearings, I would say about 10 or 12 have been for hearings since we launched, but the work builds on, some people may know Mary Joel Davis. It builds on work that she did for many, many years with an organization called Second Chance for Women. And that, I don't know how many, that's over about 20 years. So that would be like hundreds of women, but we haven't kept the data in that respect. And I really want, we're doing this database, not to track individuals per se, but to get the big picture about parole, which isn't out there at the moment. And we hope that our data can help with that. But yeah, we have about 50 active cases. We have like another 50 that it's not time yet to start actively working on them. And our primary goal at the moment is to make sure that anyone in MCIW that wants our support can get it. And once we're able to provide 100% coverage to women, then we'll roll out in one men's prison and just kind of grow like that.
Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry, someone just said, where are you getting the cases from? So it's word of mouth. We have a lockbox there in MCIW, so people can write us that way. We've got posters on the housing units, and we go in once a week at the moment, so people tell their friends.
You get to go in once a week?
Yeah, at the moment we do.
You heard that, Qiana? Okay. Yes, MCIW. They target women at MCIW.
Well, that's the first, because a lot of times things that have to do around like incarceration start with the men, and eventually maybe they make their way to the women. So we're happy to see that this is supporting the women, especially as we're promoting our pre-release and trying to get support for women. So we definitely appreciate that.
Yeah, so somebody said about the lockbox. So we are in there as if under the volunteer. We're not going in as attorneys. So the VAC office, the volunteers, that's what.
Yeah, we understand that whole process. We know. You gotta sign a whole gag order.
Yeah, so you need to get under that program rather than under trying to go in as attorneys is easier. But we've just back in 1 month. It was 2 years without, where it was just mail and phone calls.
I'm not an attorney. I don't pretend to be one. I'm not an attorney. I did finish up my degree in legal studies just recently, but I'm not an attorney. And if you can kind of like connect us to the new person at the back office, so that we can get a lockbox there too and have access to our people the same way, because it's hard for us. Like, because we're directly impacted, formerly incarcerated, we need folks like you who are allies in the work to help us get inside, because they don't allow it. Like, that's a part, they don't allow us to get in. So that's why Nicole and I were kind of tripping out. We were like, what? We can't get nothing going on up there. So yeah.
Yeah. So email, I'm just going to put my, put the email in the chat there. Email me. I would love to collaborate in any possible way.
Thank you so much. This next, we're going to take 3 to 4 minutes to just introduce the partners on the call, right? So if you are a partner of Out for Justice or Life After Release, I want to give you 1 minute to talk about who you are, what you do, and if you have any upcoming events. I'm going to start with who I know is here, which is Balt. Take 1 minute to talk about who you are, what you do, drop your information in the chat. The same thing with Hope, Antoine, and if you are a partner on this call, let's 1 minute, let's flow, because we want to get the questions that our people had from Ms. Stewart and Mr. Nolley. So let's start with Balt.
All right, let me start rapping then, since it's 1 minute. I know that I had some little slides. If Dwan, you're able to put them up. If not, I can just ramble. So hi, I'm Andy. I use she, her pronouns. I do communications for Baltimore Action Legal Team and the People's Commission to Decriminalize Maryland. And on April 13th, we have our second Lawyer Up workshop, which is going to be on navigating parole and probation. So similar to this meeting, if you have any questions, at the end that you would like to hear talked about in our next Lawyer Up, please drop them in the chat. I will jot them down. But Lawyer Up is, oh, you can go to that next slide, Duan. Thank you. Lawyer Up is a guide to navigating systems that community members may encounter when dealing with the justice system. Lawyer Up is a monthly workshop by the community for the community. You can expect open conversation with educators and legal professionals, accessible and collaborative education, and connections to resources. You can go to the next slide, Duan. And we want to highlight your voice and your story to our socials. If you feel comfortable sharing your story about parole or probation, please email me at communications@DCRIM Maryland. Just add your name and Lawyer Up stories in the subject line. Our last Lawyer Up was really great. We had some really fantastic conversation, really great collaboration, and we would love to see you there.
Yeah, thank you so much. Next, Twan, you want to take a minute to introduce who you are and what you do?
I'm Antoine Qualls from Helping Oppressed People Excel, formerly impacted, educate and teach those being formerly released about the barriers and situations that stagnate them, that oppress them once they are released, and there is ways and resources around those barriers to stabilize yourself, that you can have a hopeful impact back into the community, back into your life, and be a representative of legacy building in your community.
Thank you so much, Twan. Do we have any other partners? Is Monica Cooper on? If you're another partner of Life After Release or Out for Justice, please speak up. You have 1 minute to talk about who you are and what you do.
I am, I don't need a minute, I just need 30 seconds. of Monica Cooper, the Executive Director of the Maryland Justice Project. We work with women and girls incarcerated and formerly incarcerated, and I am thoroughly enjoying this meeting.
Thank you. We are happy to have you, Monica. Do we have any other partners on the call before we get into the question?
Life After Release here. I've been talking a lot, so I'm gonna step back. So I'm gonna put my information in the chat for y'all, but I just want to say the Life After Release has just started what will be the best job club program in the region, where we will be connecting individuals who are formerly incarcerated and directly impacted women who are have been touched by the criminal legal system or on probation or parole. We're actually hooking up with the probation and parole office to actually get folks as soon as they come home, to get them, not only get them a job, but help them to sustain a job, help them with all the barriers and all the obstacles that they go through when trying to get a job, whether that's childcare, transportation, housing, whatever those barriers may be, helping them to break those barriers so they can enter into the workforce and stay in the workforce. And then we will also be holding our employers accountable, right? Teaching our employers on what it is to ban the box on the applications, teaching our employers what it means to actually have meaningful employment and having our tax credits and things of that nature, so that we can actually bridge the gap between employment and getting our people employed.
Qiana, can you tell the people where this job club is located?
Our job club right now is virtually. Boom, our community director is on the line. I will get her information. She can drop her information. Right now it's virtually. That will change once the pandemic stuff lifts. But right now it's virtually. And when we go back in person, it will be in Prince George's County, Maryland, at 4710 Off Place in Camp Spring, Maryland.
Thank you so much. Now, let's get back to the Office of Parole and Probation. Okay, I saw some questions in the chat, but I want to be so graceful to allow because we're offering a hybrid approach over here where we have an in-person meeting and virtual. And so I want to give one of my members an opportunity to ask a question about under a minute, right? Because we want the question asked, and then we want to pivot over to the experts from parole and probation to answer. So which one of you want to start? Our voting fellow. Thank you so much.
How you doing? I have a question. I heard Mr. Neely say,
Nah.
Mr. Nolley say, I apologize, Mr. Nolley say that he wouldn't tell his client to leave a job to come to report. Now, I went through a personal experience. I'm formerly incarcerated, I haven't been home that long. I was actually violated and locked back up because he knew that I had a job. He knew the field that I was working in. And he threatened me and said, well, I'm gonna send you back to jail because you missed 3 reports. I showed my pay stubs, my schedule and everything. Now, mindful, he was a former correctional officer as well.
So can I jump in?
Sure.
All right, I'm gonna jump in because I was a former correctional officer too, okay? So I'm gonna jump in, and Mr. Nolley, we can tag team, and I can tag team you in and out with this one. If you don't mind, sir, because I know you directed to our director.
But it's okay.
It's okay.
It's all right with you.
Yeah,
It's okay.
yeah.
All right.
It's okay.
So let me just say this one thing. So one thing in our experience, and I'm gonna just talk to some things in my experience. So I have been on the parole and probation side for 12 years, corrections 10 years. So we have clients that come in and they was working, they work, they'll bring the pay stubs and we like, yes, looking good, sounds good. 30 days later, no pay stubs. So our management, right? We got to verify, they looking for us. Mr. Nolley, our high ups are looking at, we're verifying these pay stubs every 30 days. So if you say to me, I'm working, and I'm like, okay, I need the pay stubs, I need the verification. And let's just say you're like, I'm working on it's direct deposit and I don't have a code to get into the, and so, we'll have that happens often. So if you're saying that and you don't have access to the direct deposit or the verification, like you may have had we'll give the grace, but we need to verify that so we can say why you're not coming on the scheduled days so that we can modify that. As long as we have that verification that you are still working and that you're still working those hours that our big bosses give to us to see you, and why we have to modify that. So let's say mine is the first and third Thursdays of the month to report.
Well, real quick, Ms. Stewart, we're talking about a case where a gentleman has physical pay stubs and information to employer saying, look, brother, I've been at work.
But was it current?
Was it
Yep.
current? Was it current pay stubs?
Yes, all my pay stubs are current.
Okay.
My pay stubs is current, right? My pay stubs, I'm talking to myself, my supervisor. So I had him on speakerphone, right? He called my cell phone. I don't care if you have a job or not. If you're not here on a such and such date, I'm gonna lock you up. 2 weeks later, I went to report to a new agent. After I did everything, the proper chain of command, I wrote him up. I talked to the supervisor, and apparently my stuff was put on the back burner, like some of them do.
Double standards.
And I went to report to my new supervisor, and I was locked up, and I'm dealing with the situation now.
Can't be
Okay.
at one time.
So
How do you navigate
how do I
that?
navigate through that? If I do the necessary paperwork to write the agent up, then I go to the supervisor and he does nothing about it, but change my parole officer behind my back, and then I find out you got a new agent and I go to report and I get locked up.
There's always a chain of command. That supervisor has a supervisor. That supervisor has a regional manager. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
That regional manager reports to me. If you haven't heard anything in regards to your case, you keep elevating that, and eventually we look into it. That I don't appreciate necessarily hearing when staff aren't receptive and responsive to information, because that's primarily what we're all about. You know, as far as a supervisor should get back to you if you notified a supervisor in regards to a situation to resolve it, somebody should have gotten back to you. So I like to hear about those things because we quickly try to get those resolved as quickly as possible. And I'm not sure what the other circumstances that may be behind the scenes, but because I would have to look at your individual case. But we specifically tried to not have that situation occur, and that should not be happening in regards to your ability to report. We've given our agents a lot of technological advancements recently where they can use, like I'm on my cell phone right now.
Right.
You guys in regards to reporting. So that should be, we gave them the ability, and the pandemic also forced us into that, to do that. But we always are looking to utilize technology when technology needs to be utilized. And if someone's working and there's a schedule situation, we try to encourage our agents. Hey, let's say you work at Chick-fil-A. And I know you work at Chick-fil-A, and I've called you at Chick-fil-A. Now, I don't want my agent barging into your job dressed in a vest with their badge and everything hanging from their bodies, come and say, I need to speak to Walter. We want to be dignified in how we try to approach you at your job. So maybe we know you work on a Tuesday, and I can see, hey, how you doing? Maybe pay for my food, and I'm out the door, and we can talk later on if there's a situation that develops. But we try to train our agents that there's multiple ways to try to get involved and engage clients. And it's not necessarily that we're trying to force someone to come to see us and we know they are working. We try not to get involved in that as much as possible. And like I said, that's where the phone come in. So
we appreciate that. We appreciate that, Mr. Nolley, because you are setting the tone for how you want this agency to operate, right? Even without knowing all the details, the idea is that when people are successful, your agency is now given open up more technology to engage. And that leads into my next question. When a person first is assigned a parole and probation officer, is it common practice for the parole agent to give their phone number and email address? And that's just really a yes or no question.
Yes, it should be that the agent should give as much contact information to a client in the effort to reach them. Definitely if we give, all of our agents have cell phones.
I just want you to know, Mr. Nolley, that and this may not be coming from you at all, but there are agents out there who refuse to give their clients their email addresses, their phone numbers. And I at Out for Justice always encourage my members, listen, get an email address, get a phone number, and start building a chain of communication. When you speak with that probation agent, I don't care if it's a good phone call, you email, hey, it was great speaking with you today. This is what we discussed, the end, right? Start building that paper trail, like Ms. Stewart said, that protects all of us in terms of what happened. We have another question, Antoine, Nicole, I think based upon charges as high risk to community, and it was tight, but also some have to navigate some agents who create boundaries, right? And I got another, do we have any other questions out there in the chat that they want to ask Mr. Nolley or Ms. Stewart about?
Yes, this is Barnes Bay.
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Bay.
Okay, I've been out for 4 years now. The first year that I was out, I took my state taxes saying that I owe y'all for parole and probation. That was okay. That was only $900 and something. But for the last 3 years, y'all been taking all my money. And the collection, I called down the controlling building. They saying that I owe parole and probation $54,000. So I've been locked up for 22 years, and I'm still trying to figure out, how do I owe you all this money? My PO when I came home,
And they say
told me
it's
to write David Bloomberg. I wrote David Bloomberg for a waiver. And you still took the 900. I'm really ain't worried about it. But I'm going down slower and slower. You know, the pandemic. You know, I don't have a lot of money.
Mhm.
So I think what, just to reiterate, because Mr. Bay visited my office today, Mr. Nolley, and we are engaging him to become an out for justice member. And as everybody knows, our goal is to change laws and policies that impact formerly and currently incarcerated people. And one of the issues Mr. Bay and many of us deal with, Mr. Nolley, is the ways, the fees, right? And
Yes.
I know there are some ways that, you know, we could get a waiver, you know, can you touch on a couple of things? And Ms. Stewart can help out as well. One, when a person is indigent and do not have a job, is there a process in which their fees can be waived? That's the first question, right?
Okay.
Could your agency help people who are currently indigent, which means making under the federal poverty line, access to get those fees waived? And how do we deal with the complex issues like Brother Bay talked about, where he had been sitting in jail for the majority of the time, right? And surely there's some other things that is connected to him, because the Department of Corrections, sometimes they do a horrible job in terms of categorizing us. They don't take us out of certain systems or put us in certain systems. But can you at least explain, and I know that you and your office is keeping an open line of communication with the community. And so I know you're not going to be able to answer some of the complex issues like Brother Bay. But just know we will be reaching out to your agency to try to put the pieces together to figure out how a man who did 12 years in prison and had to come home and pay probation and parole fees for that whole 12 years, right? That's complex, right? But can you talk about the fees, right? How do us as formerly incarcerated people get access to waivers, right? Are there other ways that we could use? Could a fee turn into like doing community service? Could that justify a fee? You know, so can you talk a little bit more about the fees, and the complexity around the fees, and what are the benefits we have as formerly incarcerated people trying to work a job, trying to work a 9 to 5, getting paid under $15 an hour, still have to, not only do we pay our debt to society in prison, we're still paying our debt by being on supervision, but then these fines and fees somehow get us caught up in the system.
That there's, you know, without looking at his specific case, because one thing that generally happens is that, let's say there was a restitution that was owed. We try to, when I say try, we try very hard to avoid having to write a violation regarding non-payment of fees on a case where someone's indigent or doesn't have the ability to pay. Generally speaking, like with restitution, if it reaches a point where supervision is about to end, a judge can order or allow us to refer any unpaid balance to Central Collections Unit. The issue that's involved with that is that when we make a referral, regardless of the amount, once it's referred, there's a 17% collection fee that's locked on top of that.
Oh.
And then every year, it's almost just like think of it like a credit card bill. you get compounded interest for the amount that's unpaid, and it keeps tallying, it keeps tallying and keeps tallying. And, you know, that's maybe where it may have started. Let's say it was $5,000 of restitution. I'm not sure. Like I said, I have to look into your case. And it may have been referred to CCU by a judge. Then CCU puts on their additional amount, and then it just keeps compounding. And then when you're released, there's a tax intercept, and they take your money until they pretty much pay off the balance.
Now, I think we're talking about two different things, right?
Yeah, we'll
But
get
a
to
lot of our sentences, certain sentences come with restitution attached, right?
Yeah.
If I have a theft charge and I stole $5,000 worth of goods, there's a restitution attached. That is a requirement by the courts that I must pay, right?
Yeah.
That has nothing to do with probation and parole, right? That's just you are making sure that I know what my restitution is, right? I think what we are also talking about is just the traditional probation fees, right? So take away restitution. Give us your insight on just the basic probation and parole fees.
Yeah, you talk about supervision fees.
Supervision fees.
For parole and mandatories, what ends up happening is that they impose, I believe it's if you were convicted, I believe it's 1991. If you were convicted after that, the fee that's imposed is something like $50 a month.
Mm-hmm. And that's under the Maryland State Annotated Code 6226, if you're on supervision. So that's the law. So, and I know a lot of times persons will say the parole and probation fees, but that's under the Maryland law, that if you're convicted under the criminal articles, that's under the articles of the criminal law. If you're convicted, there is those supervision fees that are imposed. However, and I know that a lot of times, you know, and our clients are coming, I give them to every client, if they're on supervision, this is the law, the Maryland law, that these fees are imposed after 1991. So this isn't the parole and probation rule or parole and probation policy per se. This is the annotated code for the law. And so I give that to our clients along with kind of, and I call it the cheat sheet. So I say the cheat sheet, here, you can take this is a sample that you can take to the court, you can write to have your fees waived, especially if you're on disability. You know, if the clients are on disability, you know, they come to say, hey, Ms. Stewart, I'm giving you my disability certificate, you know, I'm unemployed. You know, I'm trying to say, okay, we'll see, you know, we'll take that time to say, hey, here's some resources for employment. You know, here's the STRIVE program. Here's Turnaround Tuesday. We will try to assist in that area to say, you know, once you're making these good faith efforts, we will assist in that area. That's one of the first resources I give to all of my clients. But a lot of clients won't take that resource. But we'll give it to them and say, hey, this is under the Maryland law. Okay. That once you're a criminal procedure, this is the article.
Okay, so what you're saying, Ms. Stewart, is that this is not, these supervision fees are not at the discretion of the parole and probation office. These are fees that are incurred because somebody changed a law or passed a law in the General Assembly that required you all to have these fees. Our question is, could a probation officer, at the time of seeing a client do well, do you all have the discretion to support us with the waiver that's sent to the judge that say, can you please remove these fees? Yes. Because sometimes we're given the paper and say, you go do it. But we can't have the ability to do that.
Right, we can't do that. We can't do that, but what we can do is encourage you and say, hey, this is what you can do. You can go and ask the judge or your legal representation, and they do it all the time. I've seen more clients' fees waived in the last 2 years And I've seen in my entire career, almost everybody's fees have been waived in this last 2 years. They'll just go in, they'll make a call. They'll come back and say, hey, the fees are waived, we're waiving these fees. But it's just the efforts of, hey, if you're on disability, if you apply, but just applying for SNAP or entitlements, and send that along with your request. I've even seen people handwrite it on loose leaf papers and mail it to the courts. That small effort on your part, showing, hey, I'm showing accountability, I'm showing that I'm putting the effort, and I care. A lot of times the courts, the judges, the parole commission that send us back, fees, waive, granted. But they want our clients to see that they're putting forth this effort.
I appreciate that.
Right, but what happens? Let me tell you what happens a lot of times. You know, they'll say, I don't got the money. You know, we ain't working. We know, and we're saying that this is the Maryland law. So we're encouraging and we're saying, hey, that's not going to disappear. When this case get down to expiration and it gets referred to CCU and everyone's doing great, life going great, and then income taxes, you know, it's time for tax time, stimulus checks, you know, they're like, what happened to my money? You know, and then that happens because the state is going to come back and get their coins. So this is why we try, and especially when you're doing well and you're working and you want your money. So that's why we try to encourage it. Even if you write 2 or 3 lines and say, hey, please, can you waive your fee? I have dependents. I'm in this program. I'm with you guys. And then write those letters of support. Usually, I've seen more fees waived than not.
I appreciate
so it's just that effort.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. You really answered my question, you and Mr. Nolley. Qiana, do you have any questions from Life After Release or any of your members?
The only question I want to talk about is so when we talk about, like, this is more legalese, talk about folks coming in off a suspended sentence, right? So you've been sentenced to, let's say, 10 years, suspend all but 5. What that means is you are going to go to prison for 5 years, and then you're going to come home on parole, probation, what have you. You come home and your fees and things are not paid. And this may not even be a question that neither one of you all can answer, but have you seen cases or instances, or do you know of times where someone's backup time has been issued by a judge because they have not completed fines or fees or what have you? Because we have some really some judges on the bench that are not really too much into that mass incarceration. They can lock up whoever they can whenever they can. So they don't care about any of that stuff. So I want us to be mindful around like any suspended sentencing too.
Generally speaking, judges around the state of Maryland has basically deferred a lot of, when you talk about fines and costs, to us. And what I mean by deferred is that at the end of probation, absent of any type of violations or anything, the lion's share of the judiciary in the state of Maryland has granted us the ability to automatically just refer it to CCU and not issue a violation of probation or in regards to the lack of payment of supervision fees, fines, and costs. Now, like I said, restitution is a whole different beast in regards to that, because if it's involving restitution, generally speaking, they have the ability, if we have to bring you back in front of a judge in regards to lack of payment of restitution, they do have the ability to possibly revoke a probation in regard
part of the sentence.
To avoid that. And what I mean by that is we give a complete picture of what's going on. Like if the individual was unemployed and has made good faith effort to pay the restitution, we make sure that the judge is aware of that they couldn't work or they was unable to work. I know you said he had to pay $5,000, but he at least paid $500. sometimes most of the times from my practice and seeing how judges operate, most of the time they will just simply refer that money to CCU. But of course, that's not every case. But again, that brings on a whole different dynamic in regards to once it's referred, now you're talking about adding additional bricks to the pile of debt that you already have. So
yeah, we understand. We are at 7:51. We have about 4 more minutes. This was a great discussion, and we hope Mr. Nolley and Nolley and Ms. Stewart come back. We heard we had some probation officers who were invited on this call too. They may not want to show themselves, but they are here. Thank you for being here and listening. I want to make sure my folks are really clear about one thing, and if anybody else has another question before, and Mr. Nolley and Ms. Stewart, you don't have to take forever to answer my question, right? A lot of times when I get my members, they come in, like Ms. Stewart said, in their mind, you know, the judge will order them to probation parole, right? Whatever probation and parole says. Sometimes the paperwork will say remanded to check probation and parole. A lot of people don't understand that whatever the probation officer wants you to do as a part of your reentry process is up to the probation officer. Many people believe that because the judge didn't say it in court that I gotta do mental health, that I gotta do drug treatment, that they don't have to do it. And what we learned is that when that judge checks that box on your paperwork and orders you to probation and parole, that parole or probation officer can decide what they want you to do. Can you speak a little bit to those types of orders that are not, it's not all spelled out. The judge doesn't give a lot of instructions. It just checks that box, probation and parole. Can you explain to people that the type of autonomy a probation officer has when the judge has ordered them to probation and parole? You don't have to be, long with it if you don't want to.
I was gonna say, generally speaking, we don't arbitrarily just say, oh, you gotta go over to XYZ treatment program just because. Generally speaking, those are based on needs that are identified. Like, let's say you share with your agent that you're struggling with substance abuse. We're not just going to leave that there. We're going to try to help you out. So then we'll make a referral and tell you, hey, you need to go into drug treatment because you've recognized and you report to us that that's an issue or a problem. But we just don't go out and just say, oh, I think that you need to go to drug treatment and I'm going to order you to drug treatment. Generally speaking, it's based on a need that's identified if we make any referrals. Like if you're
unemployed by prior record, I mean, what do you mean need identified? Because I've seen orders that doesn't indicate a need or anything. And the judge doesn't give too much instructions on what type of programs you must engage in. But I learned that parole and probation officers have the ability to request that people go to a place or do a thing, and they have to do it. And if not, they will be violated. So are you saying that those needs, well, based on what they assess, is that about assessing the prior conviction? Is that about assessing what they see in person of the person? What are those different types of assessments that happen that would encourage a probation officer to request you to do some things that's not necessarily in your original order?
It could be based off of an assessment. Like, let's say I'm just going to use an example. Let's say I've received information from an authority that a person recently suffered an overdose for whatever substance it is, we're going to have to address. But typically what we always try to tell the agents to do is to make it clear for everyone, is if you have a situation where like that was unclear, where there may be some ambiguity and you see a referral, write to the court, let the court know so that they can possibly add it as a special condition so everyone's clear. But generally speaking, what we try to do is, when I say identified need, that's a red flag identified need that, hey, we have this person and this person has suffered from an overdose, and we need to address that right away because we don't want the person to fail. We don't want the person to die. And we want to try to get them routed into some type of a treatment program. So, like I said, it's not something arbitrary come out of the blue. It's generally speaking, it's incident driven. It may be something that you told me during our interaction. Like today, you may, hey, I've been really struggling and I used drugs last night. We're just not going to sit there and haul you back to court and violate you and send you off to prison. We're going to try to make a referral so you can address that particular area. So, that, like I said, that's the subtle nuance, trying to get the agents to understand, hey, just when you have a situation like that and you may have to do a referral, notify the court. We're not going to ask for them to violate the person, but we may ask for them to add it as a condition so that everyone's on the same page.
Right. Does anybody have any lingering questions in the last couple of minutes to Ms. KaeShawn or Mr. Stewart? Ms. Stewart or Mr. Nolley? Okay, I got another question. Go ahead. Who was that?
This is Barnes Bay.
All right, Mr. Bay, go ahead.
My question is, I don't owe y'all anything because I was incarcerated. Okay. But that bill is still there. When I call the collectionary, the bill is staying parole and probation. And I'm still trying to, right now, I'm still trying to figure out, how do I owe y'all any money? And when I went to court, when I was in court, the judge waived my fees.
Well, Mr. Nolley, and I don't want to put you on the spot, are you open to at least reading an email from us in reference to Mr. Bay, where we can give you some background information, dates and things like that, so that you can look over that as the deputy, the deputy director? Are you open to that?
Yeah.
Okay. So, Brother Bay, what we're going to do. Can you hear me?
I was going to say, if there's something that we need to, and we'll take a look at it.
Thank you so much. So, Brother Bay, we're going to get together this week or before next week. We're going to write down a productive email that goes in chronological order. Step 1 would happen, step 2 would happen, and we're going to get this directly to Mr. Nolley so that he can do some investigation and give us an educated answer, or at least guide us in the right direction to how we figure this out. My last question is about violations of probation, right?
Okay.
That is happening all over the state right now, right? I know that you all agents have the discretion to violate or not, right? And sometimes you're overruled by a judge, right? So can you talk a little bit about when someone picks up a new charge, right? Now, remember, in our world, we all have the presumption of innocence. And that should also be in your world too, Mr. Nolley, right? That there's a presumption of innocence, because I can walk outside of my office and walk right into an indicted corner. The corner of my office is indicted, right? And so I can easily walk out in the world get stopped by law enforcement, get arrested, and most times those charges are dropped. Walk us through, how your office handles those new charges. What are some of those discretions? What are some of the things that you can and cannot control around violations? As I know that you might have to, there's a trigger. We know that when somebody reoffends or when somebody catches a new charge, the state police and every other agency is alerted. We know that, right? But walk us through a little bit of what a probation officer can or has the discretion to do in the event of somebody picking up what we think is a new charge, and the ability to give them the chance to fight their case in a free way as opposed to automatically being violated. And we're gonna close you out with VOPs, the different ways that that you all can navigate VOPs, or Ms. Stewart, whichever decides.
I was gonna say, generally speaking, what happens is the person is rearrested.
I hope they're giving probation and parole some money to upgrade their technology in their building. They giving all that money to the Department of Correction. Oh, shucks. Miss Stewart, is Miss Stewart?
I'm gonna chime in.
Thank you, Miss
I'm
Stewart.
here because I'm not sure what happened to Mr. Nolley. But what I will say is that, so a lot of persons believe that the agents always have the power to do the violating and not violating. So there are certain situations where there's technical and non-technical violations. So in some circumstances or situations, we will, it's like we're told that there's the policies where there are new arrests. Most often when there are new arrests, there is no discretion for us. We have rules, we have policy and procedures. We have to do that report. And according to our policy, procedures, and protocols, we have to do that violation of probation report. So often, and quite often, some persons say, well, you're the PO, can't you just write the report? Do it have to be a report where you're violating, or you have to be a violation? Unfortunately, we don't get the discretion to say if that particular report is to just inform the judge of that, depending on what that new charge is.
Yeah.
It is an automatic violation of their probation, even if it hasn't been adjudicated yet.
I was gonna say, let me qualify that, like what Ms. Stewart is talking about. Let's say you're under supervision and I'm under supervision for a sex offense, and I pick up another subsequent sex offense. That is going to be grounds for violation of probation, violation of parole, regardless if the charge has been adjudicated or not. Wow. If you're picked up with a new handgun charge, that's going to be grounds of a violation of probation right off the bat, based on the basis of you picked up a new handgun offense. But if you're under supervision for, let's say, assault second degree and it's domestically violent, and you pick up another subsequent domestic violence arrest, we're going to probably notify the judge and initiate violation of probation proceedings. But that's just a narrow subset of overall what we do. Generally speaking, the broad spectrum of all offenses that we supervise, generally speaking, the notification simply goes to a judge or parole commissioner, and then they make a decision after they receive it. Like, let's say I'm on probation for theft. Let's say I pick up a driving while suspended. We notify the judge of hey, he got arrested for driving while suspended. Now, the judge can simply say, I want this person back in front of us, but we'll just simply notify. But only that narrow subset of offenses and circumstances will we initiate a violation of probation. Like I say, generally it's surrounding crimes of violence, handguns, subsequent sex offenses, serious, very serious charges that a person's arrested on. We won't have the ability to necessarily wait until the adjudication of the charge. Now, of course, if it's adjudicated, person's found not guilty, then that's going to work in their behalf. But generally speaking, the broad spectrum of all the offenses we deal with, most of the time you just get a notification that goes to a judge as a simple informative report saying, hey, Your Honor, he's arrested on Tuesday, charged with whatever the offense is.
So
and generally,
the report generally is a notification to the judge he was rearrested. Could that report include this client was rearrested, however, they have been doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 great things in the past 2 years. So we just want to let you know it was a notice. Or is that notice just, hey, my client was rearrested? Or could that notice include the track record of success of your client, in addition to the notice that it was they rearrested?
That's once you go to court for the VOP. So that information will be presented once that agent, because that agent doesn't go to that initial submitting of that report. Once you get to go to court and speak about what that client gets to do, have been up to, pretty much.
That's after the fact.
Exactly.
But you all are required by law to notify the judge that a rearrest happened.
Exactly.
And the judge has the discretion to either issue a summons to appear or rearrest your client.
Right. And sometimes the judges will call you. A lot of times they'll get the report, particularly one case in particular that you and I know about. The judge will call and say, well, let's have a conversation. What's going on? What has happened? Tell me about some good things. Tell me about what, I want to know. But most likely the judge is going to go with the law, because they're following the law as well. If it's a new arrest with that same charge and or similar to what they're on for, they have to follow the letters of the law as well when it comes to that.
And I was going to say,
go ahead.
That I've seen agents include that information in their report, on an informative report, saying, hey, since this person was placed under supervision, they have been reporting, they haven't incurred any other violations, but I'm notifying you of this new arrest. So it does happen.
Okay. Thank you so much. I want to thank, first I want to thank my partners at Life After Release. I want to thank my partners, the advocacy community, for showing up. Mr. Nolley, you now have access to a network of people who are constituents of yours, who are on probation and parole. When you want to do a temperature check about what's happening on the ground, you have us. We are ready and willing to share the good, the bad, and the ugly, right? One thing I want to say, go ahead.
I included my contact information. So if you have any type of, it was in the chat. So if you had any type of issues, you can feel free to reach out to my office. Give me a call. If I don't answer, send me a text message, because that's I gave you the phone number to my cell phone that I carry with me pretty much all the time.
Okay.
So, sometimes you have to bear with me, because if you send me an email, it may pile on top of a bunch of other emails, but give me a phone call a week later or 2 days later, say, hey, I sent you an email. I need a response. It's fine. I'll catch
you. Two people raised their hand. We at 8:10. Can y'all answer this in less than 30 seconds? I see 2 hands, please. Go.
have a question. I just wanted to say that I forgot to mention that we are offering IT training classes for free on Saturdays from 10 to 1. And we chose Saturdays because we know that there are some people in the workforce that want to enhance their skills, especially as we move into a new technological age. Some people, been away for 20, 25 years and they working, but they definitely going to need that skill to carry them into the next decade or so. So look us, I think my email is in there, and Nicole has my contact. We get you guys registered. Come on board. It's going to be great training.
And we want to make sure that the Office of Probation and Parole has your contact, Monica, so that agents don't have to just share certain organizations. There are many of us out here, Mr. Nolley, and a lot of us are fully incarcerated people who have turned our lives around and are creating opportunities for our brothers and sisters coming out. And so we would love to work more with your office around getting your office the names and the email addresses and the contact of other organizations across this state who are doing the work to help our people navigate back into society. I think that was the only hand, right, Monica? You put your hands up twice, right? Okay. We're gonna close out this meeting. Thank you all for joining us. I want to thank my member Deandre as he is working and still listening. I want to thank A Life After Release for your partnership and making sure that we got Mr. Nolley on the call tonight. And I want to thank the listeners out there, the folks that are watching on Facebook Live. This is what we do. We make sure that we bring the necessary services and supports and information to the people who matter the most. And the people who matter the most to us is formerly and currently incarcerated people. And so with that being said, I'll let Qiana leave with a few words and close us out.
I think she got kicked out, Nicole.
Okay, do you want to close out for her, Chantel, or boom?
I'm just gonna say thank everybody for coming. It was a lot of great information that was passed. A lot of great questions were answered. Hopefully the questions that were answered for everybody who may have been curious. The things that were said, like you said, good, bad, and ugly, the state needs to know like what's really, really going on with all of us returning citizens. And hopefully we could do this again. Like this is something that I think should be done again. And I really appreciate everybody's input on behalf of Life After Release. I really appreciate everybody's input.
Yeah, and I want to piggyback, and I know that we're not a perfect system, but we all strive to do better. And for us to do better, we have to know where we need to tighten up. So, don't feel like you're ratting someone out or outing someone. If it was a process that we need to do better with, that's how we improve. So, that I look at it from a perspective, not of negativity, but it's from a perspective that we want to try to improve because we want to have this work for people just as much as we needed you guys as far as being under supervision to work for us. So it's a partnership and not more or less a dictatorship as per se, as much as people want to interpret it as. But we need your help just as much as you need ours.
That was a great closing. With that, thank you all for coming. We will do this again. We're going to ask Mr. Nolley, Mr. Stewart, and some other agents to join us at next month's Lawyer Up. I would love for you to come through. Lawyer Up is April 5th, the second Wednesday of the month. We'll make sure we have some attorneys present, and hopefully we can bring back Mr. Nolley for some more.
April 13th. April 13th.
April 13th, Lawyer Up. So look on the Out for Justice Facebook page. Remember to go to the Life After Release Facebook page for more information. Thank you all so much for dropping by and learning and educating yourselves with us.
Quick question.
Go ahead, Deandre, hurry up.
I said person, right, that's been on parole, probation, whatever, and he been working and going to school, and he say he had 3-year probation. How long does do y'all he has to be on that for y'all to grant him like an early parole or probation or release? Do
That's
y'all
what
grant that?
that's where I was talking about in regards to earned compliance
Yeah,
credits.
you wasn't here when we talked about earned compliance. So we'll get to you, Deandre, because you was a little late, but he went in on earned compliance and he told us about some ways that some of us didn't even know some new stuff that popped off. So you need to call me so we can give you the insight on earned compliance.